South Carolina, Georgia is next. So this one's interesting. South Carolina's coming on, with a one-on-one record. I think last game they played, they beat Furman 47-21. Obviously, they lost the first game in North Carolina where they were really dominated by North Carolina. You have to wonder, was that a first game or is that actually telling of when they play good competition, that's what's going to happen. So it'll be interesting to watch that. Last week, Spencer Rattler finished 25-27 for 345 yards, 3 touchdowns. So good Spencer Rattler game. So you have to wonder, can he do that against Georgia? To your point, Georgia's been starting off slow. So can Spencer Rattler come out of the gate here, score some early touchdowns, put some pressure on Georgia and their quarterback to actually have to make some passes? And then their defense may be confusing that young Georgia quarterback to make some mistakes, and maybe this is a ball game. So that would be my concern. Like looking at that game last week, obviously Georgia blew out Ball State, but for the first quarter or so, it was 0-0, and they couldn't get off the schneid there. So I'm interested to see what this looks like with more of a offensive pulse. So that being said, Jordan, what do you think here of South Carolina and Georgia? Do you think Georgia gets things right and blows out this team, or could it be closer because of the quarterback situation for Georgia?
I think Georgia still blows them out. I like the pass attack for South Carolina, but they can't run the ball. They average 53 rushing yards a game. To be a powerhouse team, you have to at least have over 100. You have to be a competitive team that can throw and run. If the thing is, that's what South Carolina is, a one-sided offense. They don't run the ball. They can pass the ball, but if you stop their pass, what happens then? That's the thing. That's where I got Georgia on this one. I think last week, they started off slow, but I feel like their offense, they put more stuff, different things. They wanted to see what Carson Beck can do early and put them in those situations where it was weird, hard. They blew out the team at the end. They won by a lot. They can put up points. That's the thing. If you can stop the pass from South Carolina, they can't put up points. And I think that's why Georgia's going to win this by it's going to be a blowout, 21-28. I think Georgia has better talent on the offensive line or all around, and just it's that run game that is non-existent for South Carolina that's really not giving me hope for South Carolina.
All right. Jess, do you agree?
Yeah, I agree. You can't be just a one-dimensional offense and be able to, handle or hang with Georgia. They're too talented. They're too big. They've got everything. There are some concerns about that quarterback. But, like I said about Penn State, I don't think South Carolina is going to be that team that really pushes Georgia if they're struggling. Rattler, he's shown that, against these lesser teams, he's going to get you numbers. He's going to, put up great stats. He can get the wins, the touchdowns, the yards. He can do it all. But I don't think he's in that tier of quarterback where even though he is completely outclassed, all the talent around him is just, it's not going to be able to handle Georgia. He's going to be able to, at least still get his. I'm seeing this ending up being like a 41-10, 41-14 kind of game in Georgia's favor.
No, good calls. I think this was at South Carolina. I might have a different story because that crowd could be rowdy, and that might, with that young quarterback, and maybe cause some issues. But I agree. I think this one's between the hedges, and so I'm thinking, I think it's 21 points, something like that. It could be close for first quarter or so, but again, I think Georgia was going to step on the gas. What I am interested to see, though, is that Georgia has not been running the ball as well as they have in the past. I do wonder, can South Carolina, if they can stop the run at all and make the quarterback beat them, what that game was going to look like. So I have a lot of interest in this game, just from a viewer perspective, to see how good Georgia is and what South Carolina can challenge. But I do feel like Georgia will ultimately end up getting that victory. All right. Next up, let's talk about Washington and Michigan State. Obviously, Michigan State has a lot of their mind going into this game. It's going to be a weird one. It's at Michigan State. Last year, I believe these two playing. Washington won. Washington's been on fire as far as offense goes so far. I think they won the game against Boise. They scored 28 points in the second quarter, like that. Michael Penix has just been on fire with many touchdowns, many passing yards. while Michigan State struggled with their game against Central Michigan, ended up pulling away, but then they had some success against Richmond. So they ended up winning pretty easily, I think 45-14 last week. So Noah Kim, their quarterback for Michigan State, has looked decent. And Nathan Carter, the running back, has looked really well. So I think Michigan State was actually trending better this year than they were last year. I'm not sure what this coaching change will do. So there's a lot of like unanswered questions there for Michigan State, and Washington's coming in here hot. So with that being said, Jordan, are you expecting a Washington blowout in this game?
So just so you know, that Boise State game for Washington, they scored 28 in the second and 21 in the fourth.
That's quite a lot of
pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good. But if honestly, this would be, if all the Mel Tucker situation wasn't happening, this would have been my upset. I think going into Michigan State looks good this year. They look like a team that can beat a team. But now with the thing happening, the issues off the field for them, there's going to be a lot on their mind. And I think Washington's going to come in there and be able to put up points just because it's going to be weird for Michigan State. And I think Washington is going to win this one by 14 or 17. I think Washington's going to have the more firepower and be able to put up those points early in this game, where Michigan State's going to be, they're going to have a slow start. And I don't think they're going to become a comeback from it.
All right, Jess, do you agree?
Yeah, I think Washington is just going to, I don't know about completely roll them, but Washington should win this game handedly. There's just too much going on at Michigan State for me to fully buy in that they're going to be able to get the upset here. I think they're going to lose a lot of momentum because of all the stuff going on off the field. I'm not sure if there's going to be any kind of transfer window opening up because of this situation. So you're going to have guys kind of maybe having a foot out the door already, if that is the case. But yeah, Washington should come in here and walk away with a relatively easy victory.
So I'm thinking this game is going to be closer to people think, and I think it's going to be because the coaching staff from Michigan State, they have nothing to lose. They're just going to throw everything out the window and just try everything to beat this team, and just get some positive momentum going into future games. And so I could see that working early, but then eventually the talent and the playmakers for Washington will overwhelm them and eventually win by about 14 points or so. So I think it'll be a little closer early and then pull away. So that's my thought there. All right, final game of the week. You have Tennessee at Florida. Had some Florida fans mad at me this week too. I want to throw it out there. So they said that they own Tennessee and they're going to beat them. And I asked them what they're going to beat them at, because I sure didn't think it was going to be football. So this obviously coming in, Tennessee's going for the 3-0 start. Joe Milton has completed 66% of his passes, 429 yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. And I still am not convinced he's the right quarterback for this system. I just feel like they haven't played anybody. He throws some passes that they're really long passes. They just weren't accurate. And I just feel like that still is in his game. I think he's a decent quarterback, but not a good enough quarterback to push him to the next level. But maybe I'm wrong, and I'm interested to watch this game to see how he does against a little bit better competition. But if those lines of Florida are anything like they were against Utah, then I'm not expecting much better competition. Speaking of Florida, obviously they lost to Utah first game of the season. But Graham Mertz is completing 73% of his passes. He's passed for 526, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. So offense is okay. But like I said before, the Lions, I'm not impressed. I feel like they could have done better. But again, maybe it was that first week they were overwhelmed by the environment there in Utah. Maybe they'll get their footing with a nice victory at home here against Tennessee. But what are you thinking, Jess, with this one?
I think it's going to be closer than Tennessee would maybe like, but I think Tennessee should get the win. I like Milton. He's got some issues and some kinks he needs to work out there in his game. But I think Tennessee is going to come in and it'll be close. I think Florida is going to be able to give them a fight, but I think Tennessee wins this game by like 10 points. Maybe they're up by 7 with 3 minutes remaining and they just get that last field goal that kind of ices in, and then Florida can't really go down and match them kind of game. But Tennessee, I think, will win.
All right, Jordan, Got Tennessee or Florida in this one?
Jeez, I'm gonna pick Tennessee just because I feel like they're a little more complete than Florida is right now, but I also don't have faith in Tennessee. So I'm kind of tossed up. They won 30-13 against Austin P last week when they were, I think it was a 49-point favorite at home. So I'm not 100% sold on Joe Milton. I don't know if I think I'm with Jess. It's going to be close. And I think Tennessee's going to pull it out with either a late touchdown or a late field goal, like Jess said. I just have more. I don't know. I feel like it's at home for Florida. It's a big game. And it's honestly right now for Florida, it's a do or die kind of situation for recruiting. If you don't win these big games, you don't win because it's going to get tough here, Yeah, they play Charlotte next week, but they have, Kentucky, Vanderbilt, South Carolina, Georgia, Arkansas, LSU, Missouri, Florida State. That's their schedule after next week, after Charlotte. All those games in a row. If they don't win a big game now, I feel like recruiting and they're going to lose players that want to go there. So I think it's going to be a lot closer. I think Florida's going to throw everything at Tennessee just because this would be a huge win for Florida. But I got Tennessee. It's going to be really close.
Yeah, I got Tennessee too. I mean, if this is at Tennessee, this would be a no-brainer blowout for me. But since it's at Florida, I think weird things tend to happen in the swamp. So I can see it be a little closer because of that. But I do think Tennessee wins by 10 to 14 points, somewhere in that range. If Florida does get blown out, it is going to be a very long season for Florida, which is already going to be a long season, but even longer. And I don't think Billy Napier's